Why am I still like this, right? I bet you ask yourself that in frustration every single week. Now, it might be that you find yourself secretly panicking before contributing to a panel or needing to give an important pitch. Or perhaps you hold back your opinion when in a room with people that you look up to, that you consider mega people. Or maybe you procrastinate before a big event and then afterwards you find it really difficult to unwind. You can't easily sleep. You're just going over things that happened in your head, just feeling horrible and squirmy inside. Whatever it is, when the spotlight is on you, when you feel pressure to deliver, some part of you just wants to hide, to shrink up. And it's holding you back from bringing in the money or building the relationships that would help you have the impact you know is possible. And that feels so frustrating because this isn't just about you, is it? There's something that you want on the other side of this fear that you really, really care about. And you feel like you're the main thing getting in the way. I'm Ari Anisha, a leadership coach, ordained Buddhist, and I'm on a mission to help 10,000 smart, ambitious women rebuild their confidence by New Year's Eve 2026, which, given that it's the 5th of July, means that we have less than half a year to crack on with this series. So let's get into it. Every female founder and leader that I coach feels like she has two different parts of her brain. So there's the logical part that knows she is capable and experienced and is doing a good enough job, even though she knows there's plenty of things that she needs to do in order to grow and improve. Like she feels like this part of herself feels like she's enough. That feels quite straightforward. But then there's this other part, the part that she is fed up with, that seems to just live in a state of constant, at least low-level anxiety, worried that she's going to mess things up. And it's constantly trying to shout at her to stay safe. The more visible you get, the more you challenge old ways of doing things, the more risks that you take, the more you ask for support, collaboration, and investment from increasingly influential people, the more that anxiety ramps up. And then the logical part of your brain has to work really, really hard to keep a lid on it. So you try the rational thinking, you try the power poses in the loo before the panel event, you try the breathing exercises, the self-affirmations in the mirror every morning. And yes, it might help you mask in the moment, but it doesn't lead to things really, really shifting over time. Exhausting. And it's quite lonely, and it just takes a huge amount of time and energy to kind of keep all of that stuff inside and to not show it. I bet that when you do open up to someone, probably the first thing they do is try and reassure you. So there's that little voice that's gone, oh my gosh, maybe I'll finally tell someone this is so overwhelming. And then it suddenly feels like it's kind of clamped down again because the other person goes, oh, no, don't worry about it. Like, you're going to be amazing. You'll be fantastic. You're great at that last one. You're superwoman. You've totally got this. Don't worry, yeah? Or they might give you advice. Just another method that doesn't lead to any meaningful change, maybe something you've tried already or a slight kind of variation of that. And I bet you've also read some articles, probably on LinkedIn, let's face it, about imposter syndrome that effectively says the issue is something in your head, that there's this kind of mismatch between like who you are and how you see yourself. Or they'll say something like confidence comes from competence, that the more you do something, the more you prove to yourself that you can do it, then the more confident you'll feel. Like with public speaking, you just need to keep doing more of it and you'll feel better. But that is just not like what you're experiencing. As I've already said, there are these two parts of your brain. The logical part knows that you're capable, that you've done this countless times, and yet you still don't feel confident or whatever it is. You don't feel safe or secure. Like you're still, for whatever reason, feeling really anxious. So you get more frustrated with yourself, telling yourself you're weak and pathetic because there are women all around the world who are suffering more than you and they just need to get on with it. So you just need to get over yourself, right? So clearly, this approach and this attitude isn't working. Again, it might help you to mask, but it's not dealing with things at that deeper level. And what if you don't need to try harder? What if you're not weak? Yeah, what if you aren't actually stuck? What if actually the root cause of this fear has just been misdiagnosed and you're being given a cure to a problem that you don't even have, which is leaving what's actually going on untreated? And this happens all of the time in women's health. So would it really be so shocking if this is also happening to women like you in the context of having anxiety in leadership roles. I think not. I believe that female founders and leaders across the globe are being misinformed by very well-meaning people about the root cause of their visibility fears. So you're then trying methods that don't really work, and at most you learn to mask more convincingly. But actually, I think this is leading to burnout and countless women stepping back from leadership roles that they could function really well in if they had the right skills and support. And we really need them in those roles. We need you in these roles. I've helped women develop their confidence throughout my 15-year career in social and environmental impact. And for the last 4 years, I've worked full-time as a coach. And in some of those contexts, that's been just with women, either one-to-one or in a group. And they've come from a whole different range of sectors. So we've got Cambridge academics, we've got charity CEOs, founders, trustees, national level leaders of public bodies, artists, scientists, archaeologists, architects, who else is on my list? Barristers, fundraising leads, all different kinds of people in different non-profit roles as well. So I promise you, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter whether you've come from a low income or high income family, if you've been privately educated or gone to Oxbridge, or you've gone to a not great state school and not gone on to further education. Like, it doesn't matter. The patterns I see are the same. Imagine the anxious thoughts and feelings are like waves on the surface of the sea or another body of water. There is something in the depths that is causing that disturbance, but the methods that you've been given and you've been wholeheartedly trying don't deal with things in the depths. They just deal with those kind of surface level waves. That's often what the breathing exercises are doing, aren't they? They're just kind of calming the nervous system. So what we're going to be doing in this series is we're going to be swimming down to see what's actually going on down there. Yeah. We're going to go and visit it. We're going to learn from it and we're going to transform it so that there's less disruption on the surface in the first place. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah. If instead of having to do all this work to manage your anxiety, you just didn't experience so much of it. Like, it's really, really nice. I can promise you. I can't say that I'm in a position where it's completely gone, but those ripples, my gosh, they have certainly calmed down a lot. I'm talking as someone who used to have a lot of panic attacks. So yes, there will be power poses, there will be breathing exercises, there will be even affirmations that I promise you won't make you want to throw up. But these are all going to be done in kind of partnership with this depth work. So what is actually going on under there? Before we talk about that, I just want to talk about how we relate to it, because it's really easy to start thinking there's something kind of like bad, or it's a sort of sea monster or something like that. And that will immediately shape how we relate to it and what we do. So instead of that, which is quite understandable given some of the stuff we're going to talk about soon, but instead of that, let's imagine that instead it's going to be more like there's a treasure trove, yeah, down there somewhere. And inside it is going to be this treasure. And it's kind of emitting a like sonic waves or something like that. I don't know my science, so I don't know what to call the ripples on the surface. But it's kind of sending out this pulse, yeah, or maybe this kind of sound that only you can hear. And that's what's going on. So we're going to need to go down and have a little look at it. And you see how that's a bit of a different metaphor, yeah? Because what we don't want to do is start having this this kind of polarized negative view that we've got something underneath that's kind of horrible and scary that we don't want to go and look at. So what is going on? Now, obviously, I cannot say this about you for certain because I do not know you. And it is one of the things that really annoys me about a lot of the writing out there, because people are asserting things saying that, you know, this is definitely what's going on with you, and they don't know you. Yeah, they don't know your past. They don't know what might have been going on. And often people aren't even giving you a few reflection questions for you to work out if it's the right fit. So I'm not going to say this is definitely for you. But if you're anything like the women that I coach, who are very highly capable and tick all the boxes of everything we've been talking about already, if you're anything like them, like me, then I am going to hazard a guess, right? And I bet that at some point in your life, either you have felt there was some part of you that you needed to hide, or something happened that was scary or upsetting that was out of your control. And these experiences, often there's many of them, these experiences like collectively are now shaping how you are today. They don't need to be traumatic. They don't need to be a particularly single event. You certainly don't need to be blaming your parents for them. That might not be what's going on. If they involve other people, it doesn't mean they're a bad person or whatever like that. It doesn't, need to be on this like really difficult spectrum of suffering, but in some way these experiences will have shaped you. So let's go through a few of the examples that have come up, like for myself, but also, coaching women, for years now, and just listening to their stories. So these are just coming from, the stories of the women that I know, anonymously, of course. So first of all, in that category of things that you might want to have kept hidden, so that might have been a lisp or a stutter or something physical that looked different around you. Or perhaps you had a physical disability, neurodivergence that meant you were acting in ways that are a bit different from the crowd. Perhaps something had happened in your family that you felt you should keep quiet. There might be some truth that you know about someone that they don't want you to share, and there's pressure on you to keep that hidden. Maybe you had a hope or a dream for a different kind of life or a better kind of life for yourself that you had to keep quiet. Or you experienced emotions that other people didn't like or that you thought you should keep hidden, like grief or anger or even joy. Some people don't like you being happy around them if they're stuck in some kind of little hell realm in their minds. You might have wished you could have kept the colour of your skin hidden, or kind of coming into having a woman's body might have felt threatening for you in some way. A lot of girls these days, I think, are wearing like really baggy clothes because like our sexuality becoming visible, and then the sexual objectification that we get feels quite scary too. It might have been your accent or just some other part of you that was unlikable or threatening or weak or shameful. Something that other people didn't like about you, or you were concerned they wouldn't like about you, because you don't even need to have had direct feedback from people that it wasn't okay. You might have just picked it up from your surroundings. So like I was bullied at school, for example. I wasn't ever like particularly physically harmed. I was pushed around a bit, but not, I wouldn't say like sort of physically hurt. Whereas I did know a boy who, and this was because we were smart and doing well in our state school, I did know a boy who was beaten up so badly he ended up moving schools. Now, I didn't need that to happen to me to know that I was at risk of being physically threatened and hurt. Sometimes we're just picking things up around us. So when you couldn't keep this thing hidden, there would have been consequences to varying degrees of severity. Some kind of like social punishment or unpleasant experience where you didn't feel entirely safe. As I said, it doesn't need to have been traumatic, doesn't need to have just been a single moment. It might not be anything that feels particularly obvious right now until we get into some of the reflection exercises. But somehow this will be shaping how you're showing up today. So the same is true of experiencing something that was upsetting or scary that was out of your control. Perhaps it was a bereavement of someone you loved or someone you were trying to help. Perhaps a friend was at risk or self-harmed. You might have gone through redundancy, a betrayal, a breakup with a partner or a close friend who you thought would be there for you. Many women have gone through difficult sexual encounters, assault. You might have been through a mental health crisis. You might have had a traumatic, quite scary birth, and talking to mums, it just seems that like even having a baby and then not being able to protect your child all the time because you can't just wrap them up in cotton wool, like that in itself seems to, for some women, like really press these buttons of feeling like things are out of control. And yes, this is life, I get it. But many women and girls seem to become even more hypervigilant after some of these experiences have happened. It's like we're already seeming to be quite primed for risk assessment and management all the time. And then these things happen, and then we kind of like double down on trying to keep ourselves safe and to keep other people safe. And yes, a lot of this is connected to fears about what other people might think of us and how they might respond. And I think it's in fashion to tell women, just don't worry about that. You don't need to care about what other people think. And I think it's a load of bollocks because we do need genuine, helpful feedback from other people. And we do need to learn how to be resilient if it's delivered in a way that's unkind, or it might be untrue. It might just be delivered in a way that's unskillful. Like whatever it is, we need to be able to move towards that. So instead of going, well, I don't care, or you're just afraid, we need to have this kind of robustness and the skills to kind of, move towards it, get it, and work out what to do with it so it can move us forward. But I don't think most women can not care anyway, because I just think we're really primed as social creatures to fit in and to cooperate and to not rock the boat. I just think it makes sense in terms of our social conditioning, but also in terms of evolutionary biology. Women are particularly vulnerable. It's only been very recently that even a small kind of subset of women around the world have access to contraception and that we have control over our bodies. For most women around the world still, and for most of history, we didn't have any control over that. And so that made us particularly vulnerable, because when you're pregnant and when you have a baby, you have children, you're more vulnerable, and you've got these other little beings to protect. So it just seemed to me to make sense that we are kind of biologically hardwired to not rock the boat, to fit in, to not challenge, even when bad things are happening. Yeah, if you look at conquered communities that we've got kind of history of, it's very, very common for women, again understandably, to need to fit in and to be absorbed into the conquering group, even when the men have been brutally killed or enslaved, mainly, as I said, to protect their children. Yeah, so that just seems, I'm not surprised your body has such a strong response of anxiety that it doesn't really make sense to you when you're visible as a leader. Fitting in is the default for most women. You've told yourself for so long that it's not logical to respond in such a strong way. But I kind of think if you look at our history, you look at our social and biological conditioning, I think it is a logical response. So I think that reframe is really, really helpful. It was never imposter syndrome, it was always survival. And that has a deep imprint on how you show up today when you are visible as a leader. And even though I'm not taking an exactly scientific approach here, so far, what you've tried isn't working. So there must be something going on, mustn't there? So it might be at least worth giving the methods in this series a go. And look, if it's not for you, if manifesting is your thing, or priestess numerology, or tantric shamanic whatnots, or whatever, then totally fine. Go and try some of that. Great. This is going to be quite straightforward, down to earth methods that I think are pretty accessible for most women who are curious at working with things going on in the unconscious, but wouldn't necessarily define themselves as particularly woo-woo or spiritual. So in my world, for my kind of women, what do I think actually helps us start unhooking from these habitual cycles of fear and anxiety that are deeply rooted in our nervous systems? Because I'm not saying, well, this is very difficult and there's been thousands of years of conditioning, and therefore we're just going to wait until things are easier, or we'll let someone else do the work. The kind of women that I help are cracking on, they're getting stuck in there to help be part of the change. Yeah. So I think the very first thing that we need to do is what we've been doing in this episode, which is acknowledging that there is indeed something deeper going on. So that first question that we started with, why am I still like this, that you kind of ask rhetorically with frustration, you just need to change the tone of that question. Yeah. Why am I still like this? And ask it with kindness and curiosity and love. You need to move from the abstract and the general that we've been talking about here into your particular story, for you to own your story. And of course, you're never going to be able to oversimplify it into 3 things that happened, for example, that shaped who you are today. I think that's not particularly helpful as a response either. What we do just need to do is kind of go back and kind of pick up some of the threads, pick up some of the parts of ourselves that we might have abandoned and bring them along with us. Because at the moment, we're just dragging them along, kicking and screaming, and that is not working. So you need to own your own story, but I think there are 3 reasons why women often have resistance to doing that and looking a little bit more deeply, looking more at their past. Now, one, you might just be wondering well, why would I want to do that? Yeah. Why would I want to just like dredge up things that are difficult from the past, especially if you feel like you've worked through them? So, when we know a person in their fullness, when we have a kind of an appreciation of that, our natural response is compassion. Like, if a friend made a list of everything that had happened to her, like for example, like if you know about me that I was bullied for 10 years for being smart and put my hand up in class, you'd probably go like, oh my gosh, Ari Nisha, that like was really awful. It must have been quite scary. No wonder you found public speaking really difficult. Yeah, no wonder you found that difficult. So like your immediate response will be compassion. So we need to do this with you too. Not because self-compassion is a like just a nice fluffy thing to have, but because it is the foundation for change. As I said, you've been just dragging these parts of yourself along, kicking and screaming, and that's why it's not working. What you will find is a compassion based approach to change. And well, for some of you might feel like the word healing is like helpful. It might not be right for everyone, but certainly like for change and for growth we need to have we need to take a compassionate approach to it. Like just look at like dogs. Yeah, so I've got a puppy. You might have seen some photos or videos of him. He's called Pedro. He's just over a year now. If I try and train him for a point of frustration, yeah, and annoyance, and oh my gosh, like I've only got 20 minutes and I need to get back for another call, like why can't you just do what I need you to do? Like if I were to act out of anger and frustration, it might get him to stop doing the thing in the moment, but it's not going to grow a happy, loving, confident dog who has this real like good working relationship with me and a lot of trust. Yeah, it's just going to be like this fear-based approach. And like that's not, yeah, that doesn't seem very helpful, does it? It's not even about not being nice, but just in terms of like utility, that doesn't seem very helpful. And I think we can see this in children, can't we? Yeah, like if children are just getting shouted at all of the time, if they're getting ridiculed or humiliated and or told like the things that you tell yourself, like pull yourself together and all of that, like we know that doesn't work on children. So if we know that a compassionate like approach, like a firm but compassionate approach works for dogs and children, I think we could probably safely say it's probably going to work on like an adult mind, isn't it? Again, it's at least worth giving it a go because your approach so far and how I was approaching things isn't working. So let's give that a go. So first of all, it's because of utility. Now, secondly, you might have resistance because you're concerned that you're just going to get stuck in an unhelpful story of victimhood. Yeah, like if I make a list of everything that's happened, I'm just going to convince myself I can't do things when I can. Like I'll just talk myself out of the important stuff, right? So most likely this isn't actually a real problem for you. Like most of the women that I coach are really hard on themselves and they make themselves do really difficult things like every single week. Most likely it is a story that you've internalized, yeah, about things that happened. Like don't make a fuss, for example, yeah, or people have got it so much worse than you. Like there's no need to feel bad about it, whatever it is. So then you just need to like clock this is a story that you've internalized and just kind of keep working through the method. So we're not going to do this for like a long time. It's just, spending a little bit of time just appreciating how you've been shaped in a particular way and unhooking from some of those past patterns. But if you have actually had experience of that in the past, of getting stuck in that kind of story that you can't do things because of stuff that's happened to you, then a couple of things to bear in mind. So, like, firstly, just move through the different things that we're going to do. Yeah, don't stay stuck on this stuff. Make sure you're moving through into taking action and all of the other stuff that we're going to try in this series. And the second thing is to set up supportive conditions so that's more likely. Yeah, so you're going to be challenged, you're going to feel inspired and encouraged to take action. And what that really looks like is making sure you're around at least one woman, sometimes a group of women who are like doing that too. They might be further along than you, or they might be going along at the kind of same level that you're at. That's why some women come to me for one-to-one coaching. Others want to do something as a group. You might just want to go through this stuff like with a friend and check in on it every couple of weeks and work out what your blind spots might be and kind of help each other in that way. Like you don't have to come and do something paid with me. Like you could set up these conditions yourself if you think they're going to work enough for you. yeah, we need to be around women who've got that kind of same attitude. Otherwise, it would be very easy for us to stay stuck. And if you're interested in coming and joining a live online group course with me, then I'm starting one in September. So do check out the details below. On how to apply to that. There's going to be a limited number, particularly for this first group. And then thirdly, you might be concerned that you would get stuck in old feelings of overwhelm in about things that have happened to you. Now, that is like a legitimate concern. If you've experienced trauma, if you've had some kind of spiral, been in some sort of self-destructive behavior or things that haven't been healthy for you, and the kind of emotions have gone inward. So it might be like disordered eating, self-harm, depression, like lots and lots of panic attacks, not being able to get out of the house. Emotions are going inwards, or they might be going outwards. You might be like lashing out at the people that you love and kind of ruining the relationships around you. Then I think, it is important to be discerning. Like I've been discerning in the past around stuff, say with panic attacks. So like we're all adults here. This is not therapy. I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. Like I'm just offering it based on my own experience and the other women that I've listened to and supported over the years. So you have to take responsibility for trying things out and working out if it's right for you. If you're at all concerned that things might lead in a direction that would be unhelpful, then of course go and like talk to a qualified professional like that you trust. Like that is definitely like on you to go and do that. Yeah, we have to take responsibility for our own mental health and being able to look after ourselves and the people who rely on us as well. But I will also say from my own experience and from other women's is that sometimes we can be living with like an outdated version of ourselves that we wouldn't be able to cope. So I'm not going to get you to be like spending like hours and hours of like recounting trauma. Like it's really, really not about that. So what you could do is start then dipping into the methods and just like listen to them and see if that's something that you want to explore. You can just you could then think, oh, well, would that be helpful for me or not based on how my situation is right now. But yeah, like for example, like with my panic attacks, like I've had like a whole bunch of different times in my life when I've had them. Like the first lot were when I was 21, and there was a period when I was also very, very low during a few of those occasions where it wouldn't have been helpful to do stuff like this, like on my own. Certainly not the stuff that was kind of like going into my past a little bit more, because actually what I needed to do is just to get myself out of that hole. Now, my body seems to like be slightly more geared up to have panic attacks now, and maybe more so than some other people. But if I were to be having them again, because like I've done so much processing and I have so many tools now, like I wouldn't be concerned about having them. Like I don't feel the need to go and talk to anyone like a therapist about it, because I've got the tools like to work with it. Yeah, it doesn't like completely knock me off course. And I think that's the same for, yeah, as I said, a lot of the women that I've coached over the years. It might be that you've had this difficult experience in the past, but actually you're very resourced now. Your conditions are very different. And how we're working with that part, with the stuff that's happened in the past, it's more like it has a kind of momentum. So maybe you have done counselling, therapy, some kind of treatment like EMDR for trauma. You've been in like a 12-step program for addiction, or all of like whatever it is. So like I'm not saying that you need to go through all of that again. It might just be that actually there's a certain kind of like momentum or like echo of your habits from the past that are keeping you staying small. Maybe you have some kind of like shame around that, or fear that you wouldn't be able to like cope in new settings. And that, again, it might just be an old story, and we kind of need to dip our toe in to check things out and see if that is the case. But as I said, it's really important that you take kind of personal responsibility for that for yourself. So there we go. There's the three main resistances that I see. So one is you're like, well, why would I even want to do this? And that's because self-compassion is a foundation for change. You might be concerned that you'll get stuck in a story of victimhood that will keep you stuck. And again, like just make sure you've got like the right conditions for that. Or you might be concerned that you'll get stuck in old feelings of overwhelm and might have a little bit of a spiral. Again, just make sure you've got the right conditions set up. And maybe you just want to listen to the material and come back to it when you're in a better place in your life and you feel more up for it. The next episode is called Change Starts Here, episode 2. And I'm going to be giving you 3 really simple but effective methods to start pulling some of your own story together to understand why it is you might be like the way you are now, so that you can develop more self-compassion, as we've been talking about today. But if you just want to get started with that, you don't want to wait until next week, then just take that question, the one that we had at the beginning of why am I still like this, and ask yourself genuinely, why might I be like this? Why might I be like this? You could write that down on a piece of paper and just spend 5 minutes just writing down a whole bunch of reasons, going into some of that biological, social, generational conditioning we might have been talking about, and just start pulling out some of those threads that might make sense for you. Another way that you could approach this is to reflect on how you feel when things are difficult and you're feeling that anxiety, and is there a metaphor that you could use to describe it? So one of my clients, when she's trying to keep things under control, it feels like she's walking along a beach and at any moment it could turn into quicksand and she'd be pulled under. Choose a metaphor that describes how you feel, and then reflect back, like, is there a point in my life that I remember first feeling like this? And then just see what comes up. You could just spend, like 10 minutes with a cup of tea looking out the window and doing it that way, jotting down some notes if you want to do it. But we'll get into it. And if you've been watching, engaging with my content, and you're already thinking, I'd love to come and work with Ari Nisha one-to-one or with a group of other women who get it, or maybe you'd like to bring me into your team or your network or community, then check out the details in the description for the video and I tell you how you can contact me to do just that. But if not, I'll see you in the next episode.